Hello there. What is going on? We have massive news, maybe some of the biggest news I've ever talked about here on the channel. At Gen Con yesterday, Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast announced legendary partnerships with Dungeons & Dragons through a Universes Beyond system, including Star Wars coming to Dungeons & Dragons. And this has a ton of implications that go even beyond Dungeons & Dragons. We're going to talk about all of this, and this likely means that Star Wars is also coming to Magic the Gathering. We're going to talk about how I draw this logic, what this means for everybody concerned, and how this is going to impact you in today's video. If you guys are new here to the channel, make sure you click that subscribe button. We're doing a new round of the $25 Amazon gift card giveaway. You just have to be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my other videos. I want to hear from you, your thoughts on Universes Beyond coming to your favorite games, things like Dungeons & Dragons, things like Magic the Gathering. I know there are a lot of purists out there that don't want other different universes mixing with Dungeons & Dragons, and I'm going to talk about that at the end of the video. But first, let's talk about what this means, because yes, Hasbro did have Darth Vader actually take the stage and announce a Star Wars partnership coming to Dungeons & Dragons. They didn't give details on this outside to say that it was coming next year. The bigger focus was on World of Warcraft coming to Universes Beyond, or rather Universes Beyond as an expansive sort of multiverse for their gaming systems and their gaming universes coming to Dungeons & Dragons. Now, Universes Beyond is a series that has been for Magic the Gathering, and it's sort of a multiversal system, a way for them to take different brands, licenses, and partnerships and bring those into Magic the Gathering. This was made incredibly popular by massive sets like Lord of the Rings, Final Fantasy, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, maybe less popular, but certainly a candidate, and the incredibly successful Marvel sets, of which there are several that are coming, or that have come and are also continuing to come. It's like 6 Marvel sets in the works for Magic the Gathering. Universes Beyond has done tons of things. They've even done like Warhammer 40K. They've done Doctor Who. They've done all kinds of these different universes and brought those into Magic the Gathering. So that system is coming to Dungeons & Dragons. Now, this isn't the only new announcement they've had for Dungeons & Dragons. They're also announced Dark Sun returning for Dungeons & Dragons, and other familiar new content in Dragonlance and Greyhawk, and tons of other announcements for Dungeons & Dragons that weren't only Universes Beyond. But Universes Beyond definitely is the biggest announcement to come out of this whole thing, especially World of Warcraft, which is a massive world, and that coming to Dungeons & Dragons. They talked a little bit about maps and different settings and everything that you love about World of Warcraft. You'll be able to kind of play in those worlds, do those epic raids, go after Arthas and the Lich King and all this other stuff in Dungeons & Dragons. And that could be a really fun thing, especially if you wanted to import your character into that world. I am certainly of the mindset that Dungeons & Dragons is first and foremost a theater of the mind that you play with your friends. You don't actually need any books or any product or whatever. You just play Dungeons & Dragons as much as you want. Although at that point, it's basically generic RPG. But all of the stuff that they make for it is optional, additional ways to get you in. It's all additional. And so whether or not this isn't them saying, oh, your campaign now all of a sudden has to have World of Warcraft stuff in it. It's totally an ad hoc, add whatever you want, a la carte. I want it. You know what? I really would love to have this map from World of Warcraft in my campaign. Cool, you can do that. You can say it's the same zone or the same dungeon or the same raid, or you can, change it up a little bit, make it different, but you kind of use that as a starting point. You have all the options in the world to do whatever you want with this, to take it or leave it. You see, if you're a Dungeons & Dragons player, if you're a purist and you don't want this, it's no problem. Star Wars, on the other hand, is a massive change because, again, it's science fiction. It's in Dungeons & Dragons is, fantasy. So that would be a massive thing. Now, it doesn't mean that you're going to all of a sudden have lightsabers in your games of Dungeons & Dragons. If you don't want to play futuristic sci-fi fantasy and Dungeons & Dragons, you don't have to. It's unclear if this is going to impact Edge, which used to be the Fantasy Flight role-playing game, Dungeons & Dragons. They haven't really done anything new with that in a very, very long time anyway, other than reprints and keeping the game in stock. By the way, absolutely spectacular game. Absolutely love it. I'm definitely holding on to all of my books because it's a beautiful, beautiful system. However, you can't deny the titan that is Dungeons & Dragons. And Star Wars coming to Dungeons & Dragons next year is going to be massively huge. Not only is it going to be coming to just Dungeons & Dragons, though, if Hasbro has this license, and Wizards of the Coast has this license, and Star Wars is coming to Universes Beyond, it stands to reason that it's certainly going to also be coming to Magic the Gathering. Now, there's no timetable on this. This is not something that was announced. They did not say that Star Wars, or for that matter, even World of Warcraft, are coming to Magic the Gathering. However, at the last MagicCon in Amsterdam, they did announce the 3 new sets that are coming in universe for Magic the Gathering next year, and 3 new Universes Beyond sets that are coming next year that are unannounced. It is entirely possible that one of those sets will be a World of Warcraft set, and another one of those sets will be a Star Wars set. That's entirely possible. Presumably, the third set is the X-Men set, which was kind of soft confirmed through promos and things that were also... So basically, it seems like the next 3 sets for Magic the Gathering are going to be X-Men, then World of Warcraft, and Star Wars. Now, that could be totally wrong. Star Wars might be 2 years out for Magic the Gathering. However, this is not the first Star Wars leak showing up in Magic the Gathering. Earlier this year, with Secrets of Strixhaven, during their pre-release, several people reported having cards where their holographic Magic the Gathering symbol was actually replaced with an X-Wing symbol. Now, this could have just meant that they were done at the same factory. It could have done that they were partnering and some of the cards were already being in print. I don't know how early in advance they have to start printing. If they were going to make a Star Wars set, how many years in advance do they start the whole printing presses up for this? But this is the same foil that's for Star Wars Unlimited. So at the time, it just seemed like, oh, well, these were probably just the same stuff. Now, they've also done Dungeons and Dragons sets with Magic the Gathering, and so Dungeons and Dragons has Universes Beyond sets in Magic the Gathering. Anything that comes into Dungeons and Dragons, therefore, could potentially come into Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering. They're both Wizards of the Coast. They're both Hasbro. It's definitely coming. So that's massive news, and I want to hear what you guys think, because at this point, there are a lot of purists that are going to probably be sitting. There's a lot of people who are going to have different opinions on different sides of the aisle, and I absolutely understand that. There's a lot of people currently in Magic the Gathering that don't like Universes Beyond because they feel like it's adding too much non-traditional Magic the Gathering lore and Magic the Gathering stuff into that game. And I imagine Dungeons and Dragons is probably going to have a lot of the same stuff. I imagine when you're sitting down and you're getting in a role, you're role-playing, you don't want to be, putting on your wizard cloak and raiding a dungeon and all of a sudden finding a lightsaber in there, right? And I don't think in this case that it's going to be like that at all. I think these are going to be completely optional game modes and different settings, where if you're going to play a Star Wars Dungeons and Dragons campaign, the whole setting is going to be Star Wars Dungeons and Dragons, and you will choose to play that campaign with your friends if you want to. Now, I don't think it's going to be anything that you're going to be forced to do. Whereas in Magic the Gathering, you don't know what your opponent is in your opponent's deck, and so you might be playing a Shivan Dragon, and all of a sudden your opponent pulls out, Captain Picard in the Enterprise D, and then Gandalf is also on the ground, and then Sonic the Hedgehog is coming after you. Like these things can happen in Magic the Gathering, whereas in Dungeons and Dragons it's player controlled. The setting is exactly what your dungeon master tells you, and people discuss all of this beforehand. Now, when it comes to Dungeons and Dragons, I don't think this is going to be a problem for as many purists like it is for Magic the Gathering. Now, in the case of Universes Beyond and Magic the Gathering and what they typically do, I understand that there are purists. Now, personally, I'm on the fence I'm a huge fan of Universes Beyond, and I think a lot of people tend to talk trash about Universes Beyond when it's a universe that they are not a fan of. Like, I'm not particularly a fan of the Hatsune Miku stuff, but that is like the next Commander deck that's coming out. There's a lot of crossovers that they've done that are, really interesting to me, and then there's some that are less interesting to me. Like, I've got the Doctor Who Commander decks and the Warhammer Commander decks, but I didn't pick up the Fallout Commander decks, and things like that. There's definitely some sets, that I'm way more interested in, some sets that I'm way less interested in, and so it's going to be very interesting to see what Universes Beyond sets they announced for 2027. I imagine we'll probably get these in November at the next Magic Con that's going to be in Atlanta. It also is going to coincide with the release of Star Trek Universes Beyond, which in my opinion is going to be the greatest set of all time because I'm a massive Star Trek fan. A little funny story about me: when I first started playing Magic in 1994, Revised Edition was the set, the first booster packs I ever bought. Then the Dark was the first expansion to come out. I played for a while until all of a sudden I had one of those moms who said, wait a second, that's evil, that's the devil, that's evil satanic stuff, and threw all of my cards out. And I then gravitated to Decipher's Star Trek customizable card game. So again, Star Trek was a huge part of my early CCG collecting nature. And so having Star Trek come to Magic now, and I can kind of open Star Trek booster packs again, I am overjoyed. And this is a big, big deal. And that's one of the reasons that I even got back into Magic in the first place. So if you are a purist, I want you to consider at least the one perspective that says, is it good for the game? Now, Hasbro reported record profits, like unheard of profits this past year. A large part of that is due to the Marvel set, and the Marvel set is selling hand over fist. It's on track to be like the best-selling Magic the Gathering set of all time, and for good reason. Marvel's a massive property, and it's bringing people into the game, but it doesn't mean it's bringing people into the game to only play Marvel. I came back into the game when they announced Star Trek, and one of the first sets I bought when I came back in, the first set I bought was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And when I got back into Magic, yes, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was fun, and I started playing that, and it was cool and kind of silly. And honestly, it was like a silly fun type of deck to play or whatever. And I bought boosters of that, and I used some of it. But it also helped me rediscover my love of classic Magic the Gathering. And so now, when I look at commander decks that I have some in-universe, traditional commander decks that have dragons and vampires, and I have angel decks, and I have green +1/+1 counter ramp nonsense, and things like that. Nonsense, because it's disgusting is what it is. But I also have my Marvel decks, and I also have my Doctor Who decks and things like that. And so I'm definitely going to have Star Trek decks, and I'd love to be able to do like limited crossovers, like science fiction based decks. Like I plan to have Star Trek decks that have some Doctor Who stuff, and Yoda willing. So then we'll have some Star Wars and Star Trek crossover stuff, and I think that's going to be the absolute coolest thing ever. I would love to see it happen, and I'm very, very excited about it. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section below. It's super, super exciting. We're going to talk more about all the crazy news that came out of Gen Con next week. We're going to be talking about StarCraft Wave 2, which has now been officially revealed. We're going to talk about all of that. I'll talk about what I can for it because it's super exciting, and I'm very, very hyped about that. Fantasy Flight also announcing their Vault series in their first game. We're going to talk all about these things next week. We've got lots of news coming out of Gen Con all this weekend. It's a very exciting time. That's going to do it for today's video. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section below. This is super huge, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. All right, that's going to do it. Big thanks to my patrons. Absolutely amazing folks. Thank you so much for your continued support. I will talk to you later. May the force be with you. Live long and prosper. Be excellent to each other. Party on, dudes. So say we all, the spice must flow. And always wash your socks.